Hi, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Haley Fonsteel.
And I'm Meredith Link. We will be talking about nutrition for teens today. So this will be ages 13 to 18. Let's see. So at this age, we're really wanting to equip them with the information. So by the time they're 18, they're moving on, going to college, going to work, whatever it may be, they have the information and the skills that they need to take off and excel as adults. So here we see that although adolescent is the last stop of childhood, this is not the time to let them go on cruise control. This is more of a time that we can spend with some supervision. So still letting them have more ability to be independent, have a little bit more freedom or decision because we've kind of trained them the skills that we want them to have. But we still need some form of supervision. This could even be to the extent of your meal planning or preparing meals and snacks and being like, okay, here's two options. Would you rather have your vegetable at this meal be bell peppers, or would you rather have salad today? And they can kind of pick between those two. So there are some potential nutrition pitfalls around this age, and we usually see that activities, hobbies, and sports can kind of change the schedule for everyone. But also there's more influences on their eating behaviors, more so because we're seeing kids are getting more preferences around this age. There's a big impact from social media. And this is also where kids are really grasping on to messages from tons of other people, friends, family, teachers, and then there can be refusing foods or behaviors due to demand of independence. So if we aren't letting them have some of that independence, they often, there's a power struggle. They really fight for some of that. Mm-hmm. So this is one of our Angela Lamon's quotes, and it's one of my favorites as well. We want to focus on what to add to their plate versus what to take away. A lot of times you hear people say, no, don't have this, don't eat this, let's not eat that. Let's flip that around and focus on what they can have. What can you add to these things?
I think that's important too, because like you said, Meredith, they are going to get a lot of messages from social media, from their peers about specific foods that maybe they think are bad or not as healthy. And so putting more of an emphasis on how can we increase the nutrient dense and healthy foods without completely eliminating or restricting those fun foods.
Yeah, absolutely. So we really, with finding the balance of those fun foods, we want to find the balance in eating between the foods on a more consistent basis and some of those foods that you have at holidays or vacations or birthday parties. We want to help them see what that looks like. What does balance look like? So we want both sides of these things, because if we have a drastic, they only have fun foods or they only have your quote unquote healthy foods or always foods, then there's forms of disordered eating or eating disorders that can occur from both ends, if in extremes, you can say. So that's why we kind of want to find some middle ground. But according to NEDA, which is the National Eating Disorder Association, there are about 500,000 teens that do struggle with eating disorders. So a lot of times at this age, kids are their focus is, this is what we should do, this is not what we should do, and whether they choose is, a little bit different for each person. And really, we want to help them find the balance between both of these things in a way. So really understanding why a teen is doing something is going to help us find their balance with these eating patterns. So not that all of these are eating disorders, but regardless if it is an eating disorder or not, communication is something you can be very open to. Hear what they're saying, understand why they have these motives, where did they get this information, and kind of help them turn some of those opinions or myths into facts is what I can encourage you to do as a parent. So some nutrition changes that occur later on in puberty. Teen males will most likely, this is very general, but teen males will have the highest calorie count or need each day. This means their hunger cues are also enhanced. I would say that really kind of depends, because you could also have a larger boned or structured girl, a female, that could also have the same or do just as much exercise. But typically, if we're comparing the same rates for female and male, male usually does, because they just have a little bit extra nutrient need there. But during this age, it's especially important that their bone bank, because their bones are growing so fast, and needing to get stronger for the sports and things that they're doing as well. So their bone bank is made up of calcium, vitamin D, magnesium, and phosphorus. So the reason we call it a bone bank is because by the time we get to like age 30, we really want to save up all of these nutrients, and we still want to have them afterward, but we're really building up all of these nutrients in our bones, because once we get to age 30, it starts spending all of these nutrients a little bit faster. Especially the female side. It has a little bit to do with our hormones and our menstrual cycles and reproductive system. A little bit of that goes into it. But also at this age, they become more active for the most part, usually because this is where they get a lot more coordination or strength and really figure out what they do like doing. And so they get pretty invested in things, in their hobbies.
And sports at this age start to become a little bit more serious, right? They're playing for their school. That means practices maybe are longer. There are more games throughout the week. Maybe they're playing multiple games. And this is obviously, we're talking about, for like the athlete, but just in general, people are starting to be a little bit more active, doing things with their friends and whatnot. And going back to the highest calorie start teenage males, this is also due to the fact that we've talked about before, differences in the body. Females are going through a time where maybe they have a little bit more body fat because they're kind of forming their reproductive system. And then males typically have more muscle on their body. And so this could be, muscle needs more energy. And so that's kind of why we're saying you might see increased hunger cues during this time. But like Meredith said, it's totally, it just depends on the kid and what they're involved in and what they need. So another reason to be very attentive and engaged with their hunger and fullness cues.
Absolutely. So food group servings for teens. This is very, very, very general. This kind of gives you an idea of how things shift from being 13 to even up to 18, really, for females and males. This isn't solely what we base things off of. This is more of just kind of a guideline or a ballpark range to be around. Again, this will change each day depending on their hunger cues that they have. But as we can see over here on this left side, the protein from meat is very, very similar. So things that we're getting out of this: protein, iron, B12, those are some of the main factors we see here. Very similar. Males just gets a tad bit higher when they get farther into puberty. Dairy, 3 servings a day each. It doesn't really change too much. Down below, we can see the same thing for fruits. It's just a smidge, a little bit more for males as they get a little older. And it continues to be very, very similar through vegetables and grains and fats as well. Again, this depends on the body size, the exercise, and everything, but this is a very good ballpark range you can kind of look at to make sure they're getting their daily amounts as well.
And I like the comment section on here too. So, it says for fruit and include vitamin C sources daily. For the protein, it talks about including beans and fish twice weekly, serving high fat meats less often. So it gives you a couple pointers. And specifically on the bottom right corner for fats, it says trying to reserve most for healthy fats. So those heart healthy fats. So it does give you a few tips as far as like recommendations for each food group.
So when it comes to sometimes foods, it is about a serving or so a day. Oh goodness, sorry. And Um, this could be higher in carb or higher in fat or higher in sugar, whatever it is that's kind of out of the ordinary, or I guess I shouldn't say that, out of your typical meal that you're going to have, that can be contributed to it. And as adults, like even farther on to like 21, alcohol can sometimes be considered or so. But here, this might seem like, I don't know, some people say this doesn't seem like a lot, some say it might seem like a lot, but there really is wiggle room to have, whether it is a straight up cookie or a piece of cake, or maybe they're having, a dressing that is more saturated or something similar to that. You can be really flexible with how you do this and offer these things too. So we have 10 power foods for teens. So I'm kind of break these down a little bit as we go. But the first one is seeds. The reason why this is a power food is it's super convenient, very shelf stable, really easy to transport. There's a huge variety of seeds and flavors you can get from them. So for unsaturated fats and protein, that's really great. This is one of those things that's just really easy to travel with, to go to games with, to pack in snacks. It really doesn't take much thought. The next one is nuts. Very, very similar, same nutrient profile, same sustainability or efficiency that goes along with it. And then cereal and oats. I mean, these they can have so much flavor in these too. They're very, very quick. The only thing that would take long is if you're making oatmeal on the stovetop, that might take a little bit longer, but there's always a microwave. Sometimes, go ahead.
Sorry. And these also include a lot of the cereal and oatmeal are good ways to get fiber. So for a teen that might not get as much fiber, this is a very easy way and simple way to increase fiber throughout the day.
Yeah, for sure. Some even have like protein built into the actual like cereal pieces as well, which makes it nice. But for the most part, majority of people have like milk with their cereal too. So you usually get two components. Some people just aren't milk people with their cereal, but that usually can go hand in hand. And then the fourth one would be fortified orange juice. This one again is very easy. It usually is going to be fortified with vitamin D and calcium. So if they're not very interested in fruit itself or vegetables or dairy products even, sometimes that can be great to throw in place of that or for the meantime. And then there's beans. Most convenient ways to just get them canned. They're going to be super budget friendly. Might only have to heat them up in the microwave like 2 minutes. Full of fiber, full of carbs and protein. So there's a lot of nutrients going on in there as well.
When we say these are power foods for teens, but honestly, most of these that we've said so far are kind of power foods for everyone, for the whole family. Yeah, so, I mean, especially beans, I'm thinking like beans are a staple at my house because they can, like Meredith said, they are so easy to make, the canned beans, they're so cheap and they do go well with a lot of different meals. So, I mean, beans, they have that fiber component, they have the protein, they have some of the carbohydrates. So they really are such a good food in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's low fat cheese. So really this one, again, with the low fat, it really depends on the individual, whether they need more fat or not. But also with low fat, you're making more room for other fat options like seeds, nuts, avocado, oils. So cheese, you get your vitamin D and calcium and protein coming from there too. So then we have 7 low-fat yogurt, very, very similar to cheese. And then same with milk. You can even get into the dairy alternatives. So there, the same factors will apply from a milk standpoint to a dairy alternative. We want protein, we want calcium, we want vitamin D in it for it to really take that full place of that food group. That's also, I mean, you don't even have to prep cheese, milk, and yogurt. You just pour it in a glass or take a bite of it, and it's extremely convenient.
And the low-fat yogurt too. I mean, if you're buying a low-fat yogurt, you can add things with some of those healthy fats to it, like the seeds, the nuts. That's a good way to get some of those healthy fats along with the yogurt.
Absolutely. And then we have dark green leafy vegetables. These are usually, a good rule of thumb to remember is the darker color a vegetable has or fruit, the more or higher percentage of the vitamin that or mineral that it's going to have in it. So usually that's why it's a power food, just because you're getting a little more umph out of it. Doesn't necessarily mean it's better than something else like romaine. Both are still great options. Sometimes these even, is it vitamin D or the calcium aspect that they'll have in these?
Calcium in the dark green leafy vegetables.
Yeah. So if they're having a hard time getting forms of dairy in, this can even be another great way you can throw that in.
And it's just a good way, like Meredith said, to, like maybe romaine might not be as nutrient dense, but it's a good way to mix them. Like if you're making a salad or, you might not, just whatever. I mean, I bet being mindful of including both, right, doesn't mean that romaine is less good for us necessarily. They're just different foods, different things that we get from them, but just being mindful of including those dark green leafy vegetables as much as we can.
And then fruits and vegetables in general, you really can't go wrong with raw. There's no preparation there for the most part in most cases. Fruits, there's just an abundance of different vitamins and minerals, antioxidants you can get out of any of these. Whether they're raw or you get them frozen, canned, fresh, any version of it is perfectly fine. So must master nutrition concepts for teens. This really helps them take off like we were talking about earlier. So maintaining their health in body weight. This is where we have discussed a little bit of power plates, about snack pairings, the hunger and satiety scale, mindful eating. These are all things that we, as they're younger, start building up on, and they kind of understand a little bit better as they get older. And then dieting to lose weight can be dangerous and cause exponential weight gain in the future. So really this statement is there to just say having open communication with them whenever they do hear crazy nutrition or weight loss or diet things, and really break those down with them.
Yeah, we talk a lot about respecting the body here, specifically with teenagers, because like we've said, they are starting to hear a lot of messages about nutrition, exercise, just health in general. And so for us, it's teaching how can we respect your body by, going through exploring your lifestyle, exploring your movement routine, how self-aware you are and how connected you are with your body, and of course, nutrition. So these are ways that we can teach the teenager to respect their body, right? And teaching them that dieting is not supportive, right? Why is dieting not supportive? So again, they're much more, with it now. They can understand why things are supportive and why things aren't. So it's just a lot of educating them on respecting the body and what that really means.
Yeah, and that even ties to down below our next thing, balanced eating. Like I mentioned earlier, we don't want someone that only eats just the quote unquote healthy things, or someone that only eats quote unquote the sometimes things. We really want to help someone find the balance and what that looks like and how to enjoy all foods. But this even means balanced in a way of eating through the day versus, not eating the first part and then eating everything at nighttime. So that applies to our structure as well. And then interpreting food labels. This is something as they start to get older, you can start introducing and reading to them, as there's a lot of marketing terms and uses of things that can get really confusing. It's the smallest little detail in the way they word something that's a traditional word that means something, or it just doesn't really have a technical definition of it. Kind of like the difference between like whole grain or multi-grain. There's very specific words and things. But basically understanding how to read a food label can be helpful, but also helping them understand the calories are not a make or break thing. So really helping them see where calories come from. Is it coming from the protein, the carb, the fiber? Helping them understand where that food falls in the food group section can be helpful.
And I think just like in general with like food labels and calories specifically, we get a lot of questions about calories, right? People avoid high calorie foods, right? We've even had examples where people are avoiding things like avocados or nuts because they're higher calorie. Well, it kind of goes into just what is a calorie, right? If a food is higher in calories, that just means that you're getting more energy from that food, right? Calorie is just a unit of energy. Whereas if you're eating a calorie with like lower amount of calories, or sorry, if you're eating a food with lower amount of calories, you're not going to have as much energy, right? So it's kind of explaining what actually is a calorie, right? What, we don't have to, just because it's high calorie does not mean that we have to avoid it. And then also with the balanced eating, this is a question that I get frequently. Eating only healthy foods, why does that seem bad? Or why does orthorexia exist? Well, essentially this becomes, kids are going to start isolating because their friends are going to go, out to eat for pizza and they feel like they can't eat pizza. So then they start isolating themselves and relationships, start to, take a hit there. So there are different things. It's very important to include those sometimes foods and always foods and make sure that they have a good balance between both, right? So this is why we want to include some of those fun foods so they can feel confident even when they're eating those fun foods.
So how we can respond, what to say and what not to say, and how to keep it real. Even in instances like you were just talking about, Haley, whether it's the balance between food, it applies to social media, dieting, pure choices. So we can go through one of the examples of these, because really how we say it is really going to determine how they interpret it and how they, take that information and move on. So we can just use dieting over here on the left side. That's a little bit bigger. So if you're worried about your weight, let's talk about healthy ways to help, like balanced exercise and eating. Diets don't work for the long haul. In fact, they make you gain weight. I think you can even go more in depth with saying like, let's find the balance between eating, exercise, sleep, and even show them what more comes in with nutrition and food besides just food and exercise, because there's so many different components there that really determine someone's health. You don't even have to apply it to food and nutrition all the time. They might even ask, well, why does it make people gain weight? I thought it was make people lose weight. That's where, that's kind of a whole nother topic of yo-yo dieting, the effects from that. We might talk about this a little bit later on in the Mythbuster section, but also if you want more information, you can always reach out to Haley and I, and we can explain that a little bit better. But moving on to why. This statement emphasizes weight concerns, discourages dieting, and provides positive solutions for the child. So examples of things you might not want to say would be the X, Y, and Z diet is the best. My friend Sally lost 20 pounds in 3 weeks on that diet, or I need to go on a diet. I've gained so much weight over the holidays. So even statements you say about your own body as a parent, they definitely hear those, and they might even have similar features to you and start pinpointing those out. If you ever have a specific incident or scenario that happened and you're not sure how to rephrase it or what you should say, you're more than welcome to reach out to us and we can help provide some of that guidance or ideas of ways to approach that too. So that was it for today. But again, any information that relates to nutrition for teens, please reach out to us. We are more than open to communicating, answering questions, discussions. Again, all of the information that we looked at today, I put some of the page numbers down there. But also the book for this is linked in the bio from the module that you looked at, and you can find it on our Amazon storefront. But next week or next session, Haley will be talking about Nutrition Mythbusters. So this is really breaking down, some of the things that we even hear or see on the internet, or you might have heard your entire life. And we might be the first people that are like, hey, that's actually not true. You can eat past 8 o'clock or whatever it may be. So we hope you join us there and reach out if you have questions.